They were talking about if we could get Birkins for the Hermes store, and they was also saying how we depreciate the value of a Hermes Birkin bag. And what the it just makes you want to be like, it just makes you want to brag like, you know who the you're talking to. But no, I'm not even gonna take it there.
What if everything you thought about luxury was a lie? Not just any lie, a $380 billion illusion built on marketing and mystery. Viral TikToks from Chinese factory workers have pulled back the curtain on what might be the biggest scandal in fashion history, and when Cardi B stepped in with her unfiltered take, the entire industry started crumbling. This isn't just about handbags, it's about an empire of deception that's finally being exposed. The story begins in the gleaming boutiques of Paris, New York, and Milan. In these temples of luxury, salespeople in white gloves present Birkin bags on velvet trays, not just as accessories, but as investments. "Your daughters will fight over this someday," they whisper as customers swipe their cards for $20,000, $38,000, even $500,000. For decades, this ritual has defined the upper echelon of fashion, exclusive, secretive, and supposedly built on generations of European craftsmanship. But what if the real story was happening thousands of miles away in factories that luxury brands never acknowledge?
I have spent over $100,000 of my own money dissecting luxury bags, cutting them open, analyzing every stitch, every layer. Why? Because I had to know what made those bags so expensive.
Why we're here in the Highland Park Mall.
Made in China. Or maybe made in Chile. Oh yeah, that should be a thing, by the way.
The revelation didn't come from investigative journalists or industry insiders, it came from TikTok factory workers in China sharing videos that sent shockwaves through the luxury world. Hermes will charge you $38,000 USD for one bag. That's because more than 90% of the price is paid for its logo, one worker explained while showing rows of identical bags being assembled. These weren't knockoffs. They were the real deal, with "Made in France" tags waiting to be attached to products manufactured thousands of miles from Paris. The videos weren't blurry or ambiguous. They were crystal clear confessions from the shadow workforce behind the world's most coveted luxury items. One worker panned across an endless row of orange Hermes boxes, identical to those displayed in flagship stores. Another showed the iconic Birkin lock mechanisms being installed on bags by workers earning pennies compared to the final selling price. The most damning footage revealed stacks of authenticity cards and "Made in France" labels sitting next to bags that had never seen European soil. "This is the dirty secret," a factory supervisor whispered from behind the camera. "Same leather, same stitching, same hardware, just a different story." More videos surfaced, each more damning than the last. Workers showed identical materials, identical craftsmanship, identical hardware. All for items that would sell for vastly different prices once that logo was attached. For millions of viewers, it felt like discovering the Wizard of Oz was just a man behind a curtain. The magic wasn't real, and neither was the story they'd been sold.
Luxury bags carefully handcrafted in China. The viral TikToks from Chinese factory workers, the internet is now in a frenzy over claims that some of the most iconic designer bags are actually born in the East.
Hermes will charge you 38,000 USD for one bag. That's because more than 90% of the price is paid for its logo. But if you do not care about the logo, you just want the same quality, same material.
In it,
The evidence kept flooding in. One worker filmed herself sewing the iconic Hermès saddle stitch, the exact technique the brand claims is performed only by their trained French artisans after a decade of apprenticeship. She learned it in 3 weeks. Another showed the famous purling technique applied to Kelly bag handles, a process Hermes claims requires 4 hours of meticulous craftsmanship by a single artisan. The worker completed it in 45 minutes while casually chatting with colleagues. "We make 15 of these every day," she explained. "There's nothing special about it except the price tag." The luxury market wasn't just built on craftsmanship and heritage, it was built on an illusion that was now unraveling in real time through smartphone videos. And the industry's response? Almost complete silence. Hermes released a carefully curated video showing artisans in France, but the damage was already done. People weren't buying the fairy tale anymore. The stakes couldn't be higher. Hermes alone was valued at over $220 billion, more than Nike, Adidas, and Puma combined. Their business model depends entirely on perceived scarcity and exclusivity. They've spent decades telling customers there's a waiting list for Birkins, that only the most valued clients get access, that each bag is a rare masterpiece created by French artisans with decades of training. Meanwhile, insiders claim the manufactured scarcity is just that, manufactured. There's no shortage of Birkins, a former Hermès sales associate revealed anonymously. There never was. It's a marketing tactic to drive up desire and justify the price. We'd have dozens in the back while telling customers they might wait years.
So Hermès has put out a response to China, and they have like a video in a factory sort of showing people trying to show that they're actually the ones who are making the bags in a factory somewhere in France.
She put the finishing touches on a Kelly, the most difficult bag to build. It starts with 30 distinct cuts of leather and can take 20 hours to complete, 4 hours for just the handle. There are no manuals or cheat sheets. Artisans rely on their training and muscle memory to make every bag.
Then came Cardi B, unfiltered, unapologetic, and unwilling to play by luxury's rules of silence. Under one of the viral factory videos, she dropped a comment that immediately dominated headlines. Hermès should just show how they make their bags. If everything legit, then it ain't no problem showing the factory. Right. Coming from anyone else, this might have been dismissed, but Cardi B isn't just any celebrity. She's a cultural force with a massive collection of Birkin bags herself. When someone who has invested hundreds of thousands in these products starts questioning their authenticity, the industry can't simply brush it off. Her comment wasn't just commentary, it was legitimization of the growing suspicion that luxury consumers were being taken for a ride. Cardi's relationship with luxury fashion has always been complicated. As a self-made artist from the Bronx, her meteoric rise to wealth meant she could finally access the elite world of luxury fashion, a world that had historically excluded people who looked like her. She famously declared she wanted a Birkin collection in different colors, just like Jeffree Star. When her husband Offset gifted her a rare Birkin, the internet exploded with both celebration and criticism. Why spend that on a bag when you could buy a house? Critics asked. Cardi fired back that these were investments that actually appreciated in value, a talking point straight from Hermès' marketing. Now, that same confident voice was questioning the very foundation of luxury's claims. This wasn't just a celebrity scandal, it was a class and culture earthquake.
If we talking crop.
Wow! Okay, girl, see you, beautiful baby.
The backlash was immediate. Some fans cheered her transparency while others accused her of hypocrisy. "Weren't you just flexing Birkins on IG last month?" one person asked. But Cardi doubled down, insisting that people deserve to know the truth about what they're paying for. And just like that, she became the unlikely face of a movement demanding transparency from an industry built on secrecy. The numbers tell a story of an empire already showing cracks. The luxury market experienced an unexpected 2% drop in value, minor in percentage but massive in dollars for an industry of this size. Perhaps most telling was the collapse of the Chinese luxury market, once nearly half of global luxury sales, now accounting for just 12%. Gen Z shoppers in particular were abandoning Western luxury brands for local alternatives offering genuine transparency. Financial analysts had already been sounding alarms. Bernard Arnault, CEO of luxury conglomerate LVMH and once the world's richest man, saw his wealth plummet by $11 billion in a single day as luxury stocks tumbled. Hermès stock, once considered recession-proof, dropped 15 points in a week. Wall Street insiders whispered about a luxury bubble ready to burst. "These companies have been selling stories more than products," explained financial analyst Mira Hirsch. "When the stories fall apart, so does the valuation. You can't charge $38,000 for a bag that costs $600 to make unless there's an extraordinary reason, and it's made in a Chinese factory just like the $200 version, isn't it?" Behind these numbers was a fundamental shift in consumer values. It wasn't just about owning something expensive anymore. It was about authenticity, ethics, and getting actual value for money. And when viral videos suggested that the $25,000 bag and the $200 replica might literally come from the same building, the entire concept of luxury began to collapse. The psychological impact runs deeper than just buyer's remorse. Luxury purchases are deeply emotional. They mark achievements, celebrate milestones, and signal belonging to an exclusive club. Psychologist Dr. Emma Reynolds specializes in consumer behavior and explains, when someone spends $25,000 on a handbag, they're not just buying leather and metal, they're buying into a narrative about craftsmanship, heritage, and exclusivity. When that narrative is revealed as fiction, it's not just disappointing, it's identity-threatening. It forces people to question not just their purchases, but their entire value system. This explains why so many luxury consumers responded with denial or anger. Acknowledging the truth meant confronting uncomfortable questions about what they truly valued and why. Enter Tanner Leatherstein, a leather expert who built a following by doing the unthinkable, cutting open designer bags on camera to show what's really inside. I have spent over $100,000 of my own money dissecting luxury bags, analyzing every stitch, every layer. Why? Because I had to know what made those bags so expensive, he explained in videos that garnered millions of views. His findings were devastating. The supposed $38,000 Birkin costs approximately $600 to make, including high-quality leather and hardware. No gold, no precious gems, just exceptional marketing. He exposed Chanel for swapping real gold for plastic-coated metals and Louis Vuitton for stitching so cheap it wouldn't last a year. One by one, the myths that justified those astronomical price tags were systematically destroyed. In his most controversial video, Tanner created 3 identical bags, one using materials sourced from the same suppliers as Hermes, one using cheaper but still high-quality alternatives, and one actual Hermes Birkin. He then invited leather experts and longtime Hermes customers to identify the authentic bag in a blind test. The results? Complete failure. Not a single expert could consistently identify the genuine article. This isn't about craft, Tanner concluded, it's about branding. When even the experts can't tell the difference, what exactly are you paying for? The breakdown went further. Tanner revealed that the same tanneries supplying Hermes also supply dozens of other brands at various price points. The same French bull calfskin used in a $38,000 Birkin is also used in bags that retail for under $1,000. The difference isn't material quality, it's marketing power. The luxury industry's greatest innovation wasn't in craftsmanship, Tanner explained. It was in convincing consumers that identical materials magically become worth 60 times more when stamped with the right logo. The evidence was overwhelming and luxury's response was deafening silence. No transparency initiatives, no factory tours, no detailed explanations of their supply chains, just corporate silence that spoke volumes. If there was truly nothing to hide, why not show the world where these coveted bags were really born? When finally pressed for comment, luxury brands retreated behind carefully worded statements about global supply chains and maintaining quality standards across production facilities. None would directly address the viral videos or specific claims. Hermes released a statement saying all Hermes products bearing the Made in France designation meet the rigorous legal requirements for such labeling. Industry insiders noted the careful wording meeting legal requirements could simply mean final assembly or finishing happens in France, even if 90% of the production occurs elsewhere. Legal experts pointed out the deliberate ambiguity in luxury marketing. These brands never explicitly state that every step of production happens in Europe, explained consumer rights attorney Sarah Mendez. They rely on imagery and implication photos of French artisans, stories about European heritage, while avoiding legally actionable claims about production methods. It's brilliant marketing but potentially deceptive when the consumer perception so dramatically differs from reality. The silence created a vacuum that TikTok creators were happy to fill. More videos surfaced daily, each adding another crack to luxury's carefully crafted image. One factory owner didn't mince words. 80% of Gucci, 60% of Prada made right here in China in the very factories that luxury brands pretend don't exist. The most shocking revelation came from an anonymous employee claiming to work in logistics for a major luxury conglomerate. In a series of videos, he detailed how shipments move from Chinese factories to European finishing centers where minimal work is performed, sometimes just attaching a logo or packaging before the items are declared made in France or made in Italy. He shared shipping manifests showing massive container loads arriving from Guangzhou to Le Havre, followed by tiny outbound shipments to global boutiques just days later. There's no time for actual production, he explained, just enough time to meet the legal requirement for the Made In label. Former industry insiders began speaking out too. A designer who had worked for 3 major luxury houses confirmed that design teams were explicitly instructed to create pieces that could be mass-produced overseas while maintaining the appearance of artisanal craftsmanship. We had to design bags that looked hand-stitched but could be machine-assembled, she revealed. The priority was always production efficiency, not craftsmanship. We just couldn't say that part out loud. Side-by-side comparisons of authentic bags and replicas revealed what many had suspected but few had proven. There was often no visible difference. Same thread, same hardware, same leather. The only real difference? One came with a story and the other didn't. "Are we paying for bags or bedtime stories?" one commenter asked. The question cut to the heart of luxury's value proposition. The replica industry itself became part of the expose. Several high-end replica makers came forward anonymously, claiming they used identical materials sourced from the same suppliers as the luxury brands. "We buy from the same tanneries, use the same hardware manufacturers, even hire workers trained in the same techniques," one explained. "The difference is we're honest about our production methods and charge accordingly." Most shocking were their claims that some replica operations were actually third shifts at the same factories producing authentic goods, using identical materials, equipment, and even patterns just without the official licensing. Authentication experts found themselves in an impossible position. These professionals, once confident in their ability to spot fakes, now admitted the lines were increasingly blurred. 10 years ago, replicas had obvious tells: wrong materials, sloppy stitching, incorrect dimensions, explained Marcus Chen, a former authentication specialist for a major resale platform. Today, some replicas are indistinguishable from authentic items because they're essentially made the same way. We're authenticating based on microscopic details that have nothing to do with quality and everything to do with branding. As the evidence mounted, the industry began to fracture from within. Luxury influencers started wiping tags from their content, deleting haul videos, distancing themselves from brands they'd once celebrated. For the first time, being associated with these luxury houses felt risky, like endorsing a lie that made you question not just your purchases, but your identity. The crisis hit hardest among the new generation of luxury influencers who had built entire careers around unboxing videos and collection showcases. "I built my platform on authenticity and trust," explained fashion influencer Mia Zhang in a tearful video that went viral. "How can I look my followers in the eye and recommend they save for years to buy a bag that might be no different from one's costing a fraction of the price?" She announced she was selling her entire luxury collection worth over $400,000 and donating half the proceeds to labor rights organizations. Even celebrities began distancing themselves from luxury partnerships. A-list actresses declined to wear certain brands on red carpets. Musicians removed luxury references from lyrics and videos. One Grammy-winning artist very publicly returned her sponsored Hermès bag, stating, "I can't promote something I don't believe in anymore." The cultural capital of luxury, its most valuable asset, was evaporating in real time. Hermès didn't just sell leather bags, they sold exclusivity, heritage, and status. Every Birkin was supposed to be handcrafted by French artisans, every stitch a symbol of tradition. But if the TikToks were true and Cardi's suspicions justified, that dream was just marketing fantasy. The reality was global assembly lines, price tags fueled by hype, and bags built faster than ever while still marketed as rare. The question wasn't just whether luxury items were worth the price, it was whether they had ever been what they claimed to be. The internet now calls it the luxury lie, and every exposed brand is watching its reputation crumble. Trust once lost is nearly impossible to rebuild. What makes Cardi B's intervention so powerful is her authenticity. She's not a fashion critic or industry insider, she's culture personified. Her voice reaches corners of the internet most fashion executives could never touch. When she speaks, people listen. Her demand for transparency wasn't just a footnote, it was a cultural detonation that gave millions of fans permission to question what they'd been sold. Cardi's impact transcends fashion circles because she represents the aspirational consumer that luxury brands both court and fear. She embodies the new money that luxury houses desperately need while challenging the old money gatekeeping they privately maintain. As someone who worked her way from stripper to global superstar, Cardi's relationship with luxury is complex. She celebrates the access her success has granted her while remaining skeptical of an industry that might have once excluded her. In a follow-up Instagram live that drew over 500,000 concurrent viewers, Cardi expanded on her comments. I worked hard for every bag I own. When I buy luxury, I expect luxury, not some BS marketing. These brands want our money but don't respect us enough to tell us the truth. She revealed she'd been offered huge sums to stay quiet. They tried to send me free bags, offered me deals worth millions to delete my comment, but refused. I got integrity. I don't need their money. I need them to respect the consumer. Was she protecting her own image? Maybe. But she was also doing what so many others wouldn't, holding an entire industry accountable. The brands that once celebrated her silence are now facing a storm of questions they seem unprepared to answer. Because Cardi didn't just question Hermès, she made it cool to stop pretending. This isn't just a scandal, it's the unraveling of an entire industry's foundation. When someone like Cardi B speaks out, it echoes far beyond Fashion Week. Her questions hit a nerve because they reflect what millions are quietly wondering. What exactly are we paying for? Industry experts see this moment as nothing short of revolutionary. We're witnessing the end of luxury as we've known it for nearly a century, explained fashion historian Dr. Elena Fuentes. The concept of luxury was built on scarcity, craftsmanship, and heritage, all elements that have been systematically commodified and in many cases fabricated. What we're seeing now isn't just consumer disappointment, it's the collapse of a mythology that sustained price points disconnected from production reality. The economic implications stretch far beyond handbags. The luxury industry employs millions worldwide and represents a significant portion of European exports. Cities like Milan, Paris, and Florence have economies deeply intertwined with luxury manufacturing, or at least the perception of it. Real estate values in luxury shopping districts from Fifth Avenue to the Champs-Élysées depend on brands maintaining their mystique and profit margins. The ripple effects of a true luxury market correction would be felt globally. If the craftsmanship, exclusivity, and heritage are all just marketing terms slapped on mass-produced products from anonymous factories, then luxury as we know it collapses. And Gen Z doesn't play by old rules. They care about ethics, transparency, and authenticity. They don't worship status symbols, they investigate them. One leaked factory video now does more damage than a year's worth of magazine ads. We're witnessing a cultural correction, a reset that luxury brands can only survive by embracing radical transparency. Because the new luxury isn't about illusion, it's about integrity. Hermès might recover, their logo might still shine, but it will never carry the same mystique again. Because once consumers see behind the curtain, they don't forget. They remember, they share, and they warn others not to be fooled. When Cardi B stepped into this controversy, she didn't whisper, she roared. Her message wasn't a footnote, it was a megaphone blast through the stitched-up silence of luxury's elite. And what she said hit harder than any marketing campaign ever could. If it's real, prove it. How many people dreamed of owning a Birkin or Kelly only to now wonder if they've been sold a fantasy? If a $25,000 bag shares its birthplace with a $250 knockoff, we're not just questioning price, we're questioning principle. This isn't about fashion anymore. It's about fraudulence dressed as prestige, about brands hiding behind tradition while exploiting global labor. The public is waking up to realize that luxury, in many cases, is just a beautifully packaged illusion stitched together by marketing, not master craftsmen in Parisian ateliers. And now the final thread has snapped. The truth is spilling out through viral videos, whistleblower confessions, and celebrity callouts. Some industry observers see opportunity in the chaos. The brands that survive will be the ones that embrace radical transparency, predicted innovation consultant Raj Patel. Imagine a luxury house that shows every step of production, names every craftsperson, breaks down the true cost of materials and labor, and justifies their margin transparently. That's the future of luxury, authentic stories, not manufactured myths. A handful of emerging brands are already moving in this direction, using blockchain to track production and allowing customers to meet the actual artisans who crafted their purchases. Others see a more fundamental shift coming. What if we're witnessing the end of traditional status symbols altogether, posed cultural critic Zoe Williams. Gen Z already shows less interest in logos and more concern with ethics, sustainability, and personal expression. Perhaps the next status symbol isn't something you can buy, but something you create or experience, something that can't be mass-produced or faked. Will you still buy from Hermès after all this? Or is luxury officially exposed as the emperor with no clothes? The answer might determine whether these brands survive the age of transparency or become cautionary tales of an industry that believed its own lies for too long. For Cardi B, the question is simpler. If you're gonna charge $38,000 for a bag, at least be honest about how you made it. Anything else is just stealing from the customer. Her blunt challenge to luxury's establishment marks a turning point, the moment when the fantasy became too expensive to maintain and the truth became impossible to hide. Because once the stitches of illusion come undone, no amount of marketing can sew them back together again. The emperor has no clothes, and it took a rapper from the Bronx to say it out loud.